The first time my parents told me to sleep in the garage, I thought it was a joke. It was winter, and the temperature outside had dropped below freezing. But my father just stood there with crossed arms, and my mother said, "Your brother needs silence to prepare for his exams. You're distracting him with your existence." I was 18, not a child, but not quite allowed to be an adult under their roof either. My room had been cleared out without warning. My books, my photos, even the dream catcher I'd hung when I was 12, all stuffed in black garbage bags by the door. My younger brother, Caleb, had moved into my room that morning like royalty, sprawled out on my bed as if he had earned it. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video. I dragged those bags into the freezing garage. It smelled like oil and rust, and there were cobwebs in every corner. My bed was a dusty old camping cot with no blanket. I wasn't even given a pillow. The only reason I didn't collapse was because I had work at 6 a.m., and I needed the paycheck. I was saving for college, one they refused to help me with. "You're not college material," Dad once muttered during dinner. "Be grateful we're letting you live here at all." That first night, I curled up in my coat and stared at the cracked ceiling, my breath clouding in the cold. I wasn't angry yet, just numb. Hurt, yes. But somewhere, deep inside me, something clicked. A quiet voice said, "Remember this. Every single second of this." And I did. Every shiver. Every time I heard them laughing at the dinner table while I ate ramen out of a mug in the garage. Every night, Caleb blasted music in my old room, and no one told him to stop. Every day, Mom reminded me that your brother is going to make this family proud, as if I was already the disappointment. Weeks passed, then months. I worked 2 jobs and kept my head down. While Caleb slept till noon and played video games, I was cleaning hotel bathrooms at dawn and delivering groceries at night. My only real peace came in my short online college classes I took on breaks using an old laptop I found in a thrift store. No one knew I was taking business courses. I didn't tell them when I got straight A's, or when one of my professors emailed me saying I had the highest GPA in the class, because I knew they didn't care. On Thanksgiving, they invited my uncle and aunt and made me park my car down the street so it wouldn't ruin the driveway. I served food like a maid while my mom bragged about Caleb's potential and his sharp mind. No one asked where I was staying. I was still in the garage, still freezing, still invisible. The final straw came on my birthday. I walked into the kitchen to find a cake for Caleb. They said they forgot mine. My mother chuckled and said, "Well, you're always working. We barely see you anymore." I stood there holding the gift I bought myself, a folder containing the documents that proved what they refused to see. I had quietly built something. A side hustle managing marketing for small businesses online had grown into real income, enough that a bank had approved me for a loan. I didn't say a word. I just nodded and left the house. I didn't go back to the garage that night. Instead, I drove to a realtor. 2 months later, the house went on sale. But not just any house, their house. Because I had bought it, quietly, legally. The owner, an old landlord who'd hated my father's late rent payments, sold it to me without hesitation. And the first thing I did? I walked into the living room, handed my parents a manila envelope, and said, "You have 30 days to vacate. The garage is still available, if you need peace." The silence after I delivered the eviction notice was deafening. My father's face turned crimson, veins rising in his neck, but he didn't speak. My mother, usually so quick with her tongue, just stared at the papers in her hand, her lips moving but producing no sound. Caleb was sitting on the couch with his feet propped on the coffee table. The same coffee table I had bought years ago from a thrift store and which they always said was beneath the family's image. He was eating chips and playing some game on his phone, oblivious to the reality that was about to hit all of them. "You're bluffing," my mother finally hissed. "This is some kind of joke. You couldn't even afford your own coat last winter." "No," I said calmly. "What I couldn't afford was to keep pretending this was a home. But I've been building something while you were tearing me down." I could see it in their eyes. They hadn't noticed. Not once. Not the new clothes I bought with my own money. Not the car upgrade I got after freelancing for a tech company. Not the fact that I was always working because I wasn't working dead-end jobs anymore. I had been quietly running 5 successful digital campaigns for small businesses across the state. I'd hired freelancers of my own. I was making enough to live, save, and, apparently, buy the house they never thought I'd amount to. "You're doing this out of spite?" my dad growled. "Because you had to sleep in the garage?" "No," I said. "I'm doing this because you taught me survival, and now I'm showing you that I learned." I gave them 30 days, but by day 2, the real circus began. They tried everything: guilt, rage, manipulation. My mother cried at the breakfast table, telling me she had raised me with everything she had. I reminded her I ate dinner on a tool bench for a year while they dined with relatives in a warm house. My dad accused me of betrayal, of shaming the family. I asked him if family slaps their daughter across the face when she asks for heat in the garage. He didn't answer. Caleb, of course, stayed smug. He assumed I'd cave, that I'd let him stay, even if our parents had to leave. "You're not gonna kick me out," he said. "You're not that cruel." "You're right," I replied. "I'm not cruel. That's what sets me apart from you." But I did kick him out. Not out of cruelty, but because he laughed when I told him I used to cry myself to sleep in the garage while they turned up the heat inside. Because when I showed him the photos I'd kept, frost on the inside of the garage window, mold growing on the cot, he just shrugged. "You're being dramatic," he said. That was the last straw. In the days that followed, I began slowly reclaiming every inch of the house. I redecorated the walls with my own artwork, pieces they once mocked as pointless doodles. I moved into the master bedroom. I changed the locks. When they protested, I reminded them of every time they told me, "Our house, our rules." Now it was mine. On day 15, I came home to find my mom rummaging through my closet. "Old habits," she said weakly. "I used to do your laundry." I told her to leave, and when she looked at me, really looked at me, I could finally see it, the recognition that I was not the weak, voiceless girl from before. I was someone they didn't know anymore, someone stronger, someone who had survived them. That night, I found Caleb sneaking into my office trying to delete a folder off my computer. It was the last remnants of a side project, an anonymous blog I'd kept for a year, telling my story in pieces. I had thousands of readers. Some of them messaged me, saying my words gave them the courage to leave toxic families. One entry had gone viral. He had found it, and he hated that people saw through him. "You made us look like monsters," he snapped. "You did that yourselves," I whispered. The next morning, I posted one last entry. "They made me sleep in the garage so my brother could have peace. I built a business from that pain, and now I sleep in the master bedroom, alone but free." It exploded. Comments flooded in. Some local news bloggers picked it up. One reporter even asked if I'd consider an interview about overcoming family abuse and building from scratch. I declined. I wasn't chasing fame. But I didn't delete the post, because I wanted them to know I didn't just survive them. I outgrew them. The final week came faster than I expected. Day 24 hit, and the air in the house felt like a war zone in slow motion, full of quiet panic and passive-aggressive whispers. My parents were no longer yelling or bargaining. They were packing in silence, each cardboard box sealing in a part of the life they thought they'd always control. Caleb refused to pack. He still believed I'd snap out of it, or that someone, maybe my extended family or some lawyer, would swoop in and fix this. But no one came, because the truth was, everyone who mattered knew the full story now. I wasn't hiding anymore. On the morning of day 30, I walked downstairs with coffee in hand and found my parents sitting at the kitchen table with Caleb. The boxes were stacked by the door, and my mom had tears in her eyes. But this time, I felt nothing. Not hate, not sympathy, just stillness. "We have nowhere to go," she said quietly. "You had 30 years to build a place of your own," I replied, and 30 days' notice. My father's face twisted into the same scowl he always wore when disappointed in me. "You're making a mistake. One day you'll regret pushing your family away." "No," I said. "I regret ever letting you convince me I didn't deserve warmth or space or peace. I regret letting you convince me that Caleb deserved everything while I was just the extra. But I don't regret this." I handed them the final legal papers stating the end of their residency in my house. Their signatures were already required. This was just the finality. That evening, a rideshare car came to pick them up. I didn't ask where they were going. I didn't care. As the car pulled out of the driveway, my mom turned her head back toward the house, her eyes wide, her mouth trembling like she wanted to say something. But she didn't. Neither did I. And Caleb? He stayed until the last second, standing on the porch with crossed arms. "You think you're so high and mighty now, huh?" I looked at him. Number, I just don't hate myself anymore. And then I closed the door. That night, I stood in the hallway just outside the garage door. I opened it slowly. It was empty now, cleared of every trace of the makeshift bed and the cold I used to endure. I turned on the light, and for a moment, I remembered what it felt like to be 17, shivering on a concrete floor, listening to my family laugh inside, my brother blasting music while I tried to study. But then I stepped out, shut the door again, and turned off the light, this time for good. Months passed. The house became mine in more than name. I painted the walls in warm colors. I built an actual office where I now ran my full-time digital strategy firm. I adopted a rescue dog. I hosted friends. I celebrated holidays with people who chose me, not because I was useful, but because I was enough. One afternoon, I was invited to speak at a local empowerment conference. I almost declined, but something told me I was ready. I stood on a stage in front of 200 strangers and told them this. Sometimes, the people who hurt us the most sleep just a wall away, and sometimes the greatest peace comes not from revenge, but from reclaiming your name, your worth, and your space, even if you have to start from a garage. The room stood silent. Then it erupted in applause. Afterward, a girl, maybe 20, came up to me crying. "They did the same thing to me," she whispered. "Your story is mine. But now I think I can change the ending." That was the moment I knew it had all been worth it. I didn't just give them 30 days. I gave myself forever. And I never looked back. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.